What is up, my dudes? This is Seth with the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. We're back at you guys with Week 12 Underdog picks. I'm joined by my co-host Jordan. Jordan, how you feeling after Week 11, man? Are you ready to get into Week 12? We got Thanksgiving
Uh,
on Week 13 next week, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I honestly just want to forget about week 11, to be honest. Probably one of the most frustrating days of gambling I've ever had. I'm just going to be straight up, like literally the most frustrating day of gambling I've ever had. Usually able to walk stuff off pretty good, but I was still feeling it the next morning. So it definitely hurt me. I straight up told Seth I might not appear this week. And I actually meant that. Like I wasn't joking. I seriously meant it in the moment. And, but I'm here ready for week 12. I mean, I can't get any worse than week 11. So,
I will
it's
say though, like in terms of like picking prop lines, you did really well, but in terms of, like, actually the whole 8-man hitting 2 different times, like, by a combined of
yeah,
8 yards, on the last one, it being legit half a yard is extremely like, you did good picking the props, but you missed 1 by 1 yard, and it's so that's really frustrating, but
yeah. Very, very
congrats, but
frustrating.
not
Very
congrats.
frustrating. Yeah, a very frustrating day. Very frustrating.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get into week 12. Week 13, Underdog usually does some like Thanksgiving promos, so you guys will be seeing that coming from us, and we'll have some probably Thanksgiving promo plays. Not too sure yet if we're going to be having an episode or not, but you guys will probably get an update if you follow us on our socials at TFF Dudes. Trent is super active on our X profile, so head over there if you want to regularly see our faces or hear our voices in Phil's annoying voice. But let's get into our plays this week. I know I have a play this week that I really like. And my first play this week is Lad McConkey. So I have Lad McConkey at 62 and a half receiving yards. Um, he's against, a bad Baltimore defense. Lad McConkey also had an insane game last week. I think he finished with 145, 140-ish yards. And he's kind of emerging, it seems like, to be that possession receiver for the Chargers. The Chargers seem like they're more content with throwing the ball more now. I think their coach is starting to realize, hey, yeah, we can keep some games close and be around 500 running the ball, but if they need to like win games, they're gonna need to throw it more. And Herbert can. He's good enough to do that. And Ladd's that kind of possession guy. He does have big playability though, as we did see him catch, those two back-to-back 20-yard passes for the Chargers to march down and win that game against the Bengals. I'm actually going to be at this game on Monday night, so this is something I'm looking forward to see Cash live.
Yeah, Seth. No, I really like I really, really like that play. I just like attacking receivers against this Baltimore secondary. So I like that one a lot. I like one of their other receivers too. Like we just don't
Mm-hmm.
have. I'm waiting for a Quentin Johnston line to appear because I want to hit that
Yeah.
one too. So I like the latter one though a lot. Like I really like it a lot.
Yep. Let's get into your first play, Jordan.
Yeah. So I got Brian Robinson as my first play here in this matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. I got it at 66 and a half earlier. I just looked, just hit the refresh button. It is now up to 68 and a half. I still like it there. I don't know if I'd hit this up in the 70s, but I think 68 and a half, 69 and a half is still good. He's kind of been a slow starter since his injury, but I think like since his injury, he's got up to a slow start coming back. I think they've eased him into it. I think game scripts kind of played a factor in this too. They were down against the Steelers and they got down against the Eagles, and so I think Eckler's gotten a lot of work. I think this is the Brian Robinson get right spot here, coming off his injury, his first game where he kind of has a big breakout game. They're a huge favorite. They're 10-point favorites. This Dallas team seems like they've pretty much just not given up, but like they had a really good game against the Texans. Can they come back out and do that again? Like they had a good game. They lost 27-10, but it felt like they were in the game. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
like, how can they regroup and do it again? I don't really see that. Um, Dallas gives up 4.7 yards a carry. Brian Robinson could rip off chunks at a time in the run game this week. So should see 15 plus carries. I like this line. I think it's a little bit too low for him in this matchup.
Yep, I really like that line. We had some plays on Brian Robinson at the beginning of the year. I think I had a couple lines I used, and I think they hit both times. And so I really liked using him. And I feel like the Commanders' offense can be a little tricky sometimes to get right, but usually against like a proven bad defense, I feel like Brian Robinson gets there. I think it helps more than it hurts having um, Gene Daniels in the backfield because he can run, but I think teams respect the quarterback option a little bit more, and I think that's why Brian Robinson can also uh, get an advantage there, I believe. I'll get into my second play this week. So this is actually funny. I forgot that this game is also on Monday night, but maybe I'm also just playing into the fact that I'm going to be watching this game, and I think these lines are really good. What's interesting is that Zay Flowers line, I feel like he either has a smash game or has a terrible game. And last week he didn't have a terrible game. He only had, I think he had 34 yards and 2 catches, 34 yards and a touchdown. So it wasn't a terrible game. Um, but honestly, I think the Chargers are going to put up a decent amount of points. I don't think Baltimore's defense is really that good, especially their secondary. And I think this is going to be a closer game than people think, which I actually think is going to be a really good primetime game. And I really like Zay Flowers here because when the Baltimore Ravens are in a close game and somewhat losing, they throw to Zay Flowers a lot. And he's going to be the benefit of, I think, one or two pretty big chunk plays and then a decent amount of like just getting this guy peppered with targets. So I think Zay Flowers can actually have a really big game, like potentially like 80 plus. I really like him this week. I'll also be at this game, so I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, you saw what T. Higgins and Jamar Chase did to the secondary last
Yeah.
week. So I definitely think they're better against the run than they are against the pass. And it feels like they're starting to kind of loosen up. Like the Chargers were really running the ball a lot, slowing games down, but they're letting Herbert sling the ball now. So for better or for worse, like we saw in that Bengals game, but
Yeah.
just starting to feel like they're starting to the games are starting to get a little faster pace, more scoring to them, not as slow and a slog through the game. So I like that one too, Seth.
Yeah. Let's get into your next play, Jordan.
Yeah, so I got Puka Nacua over 66.5 receiving yards. It is still at this number. In a lot of ways, this is kind of a number play for me. Philadelphia, I will not lie. Philadelphia has been really good against the receiver position. They have not given this number up in a long, long time. But Puka's getting an insane amount of volume since he's come back from his injury. He's definitely Stafford's go-to guy. I know Kupp is there, but it really feels to me like Puka is his number one target. He might just volume his way to this number. I know it's a tough matchup, but like I think the Rams throw. The Rams are, let me pull it up here. They are 3-point dogs at home. So it should be in a dome. Like I don't know. I just think this number's too low for Puka and what he's been doing the last few weeks since he's come back from injury outside of the game where he got ejected. So I think the number's too low. It is a really hard matchup. But again, I'm gonna trust his volume here and trust the fact that the Rams are gonna throw. I think Philadelphia will stop the run here, and they're just gonna have to throw. So I think Philadelphia gets up in this game too. I think they should be higher than a 3-point favorite. So
Yeah, I think so too. I actually think this game's going to be really good, and it might be a game script that is like you kind of want to be watching, like a game you want to watch for a primetime game. Like I think defensive games are fun, um, but really when you have props on these games, you don't want a defensive game at all. So, and I think it's going to be the exact opposite. I think if it plays how we think it's going to play, like you're saying, Puka might be just by volume alone get there. It might take 6 catches to get 60 yards, which might be abnormal for a player like him. But that might be the line. He might have
I
8
do
catches for 80 yards.
I do think, Seth, like if you're hesitant on the yards number, I went back and forth between the yards and the 5.5 receptions. I think the 5.5 receptions, the multiplier was a little bit lower on the 5.5.
Hmm.
So I just tend to think if he has 6 catches, he probably goes over the yards, and so I don't have
Yeah,
to
I think
pay the,
so.
pay the juice on it. But I do think, like, I mean, it's obviously a little bit safer to just hit the 5.5 receptions, but you're also paying the juice. So,
Yeah,
um,
and even for what it's worth too, like I know we talked about the Eagles being good against, receivers. It's still, even if, the 5.5 catches might be safer, like Puka can easily, get a 20-yard catch and then you'll be like, wow, I really wish I took the 66, because, he just got a third of that in one catch.
yeah,
So
no, I
um
completely agree.
mhm. I'll get into my last play this week. I'm going also another Washington player. I have Terry McLaurin. So Dallas's defense is just not good all the way around. Terry McLaurin, I think, has had one of his better seasons this year with a consistent quarterback, Jaden Daniels. I think this line's just too low for Terry. I know he can be pretty volatile at times, but if this game is going to go the way I think it is, I think Washington is going to put an absolute beat down on the Cowboys in Dallas. So, or it's in Washington. So, I really like this line for Terry. I think he gets a big play this week, and I think he could get this line in one catch. And I see a big play incoming, big touchdown.
Yeah, yeah, I like that one too. Seth. It's this Dallas defense is just not very good. So, and I know like I wasn't watching, but Nico Collins had a 75-yard touchdown call back or something like that early in that game. So
Yeah,
I mean they will give up the big play for sure.
and Terry's the big play guy there for sure. Let's get
Yeah.
into your last play, Jordan.
Yeah, I got another numbers play for me, man. Mike Evans over 55.5 receiving yards. I don't know the last time you had a Mike Evans receiving number this low. So again, it's not the greatest matchup in the world. The Giants have been really good against the pass. Um, but again, it's numbers play for me. I know he's coming back from injury. There is some risk here, right? Really tough matchup. Coming back from injury, a hamstring injury nonetheless, but he's been off for a long time. So you would assume that they're not rushing him back. You would assume if he's healthy, he's back, he's healthy, full go off the hamstring. Number seems too low for me. Mike Evans is almost matchup proof in a lot of ways. Like he can get it
Hmm.
done. And there's no Godwin, right? So this is the first game we'll see him without Godwin. He should step right into a huge uh, amount of targets. So I think the number's too low. Again, matchup's not great. There is some risk coming off the injury, but again, numbers play for me. Number seems too low.
Yeah, I really like this one, Jordan. I just a couple weeks ago traded for a hurt Mike Evans, and I'm hoping he comes for me big in these last 2 weeks and including playoffs. And really, I think it's if you have Mike Evans, um, using him for a prop this week, I think it's too low. He did say a couple weeks ago he could have came back the week before the bye. He felt like he was okay to do that, and sometimes that's just player talk, just wanting to be competitive. Who knows how actually he was feeling? But that was 2 weeks ago now. So his hamstring, in my opinion, should be at 100%. He's been practicing full logs, so this guy should be full go. And I think the line's not reflecting that right. So I think you guys should hop onto it right now if you can, because I think this line is going to be going up
I
in the
agree. I
next
think it
few days.
moves. It moves in the probably the high 50s, low 60s. I think.
Yeah. So if you guys want to hop onto that sooner than later, I would advise doing that. Jordan, before we get to our official pod play this week, do you have any plays that you like?
Yeah. So like, I think the Jaden Daniels over 222.5 passing yards is interesting. Slight lean on that over. I think the Justin Herbert over 249.5 passing yards is pretty solid. I like that one. Running backs. Okay. I might lean an under for the first time. I think the Jonathan Taylor under 71.5 rushing yards against the Detroit Lions. I
I
wish
like that
that line,
one.
honestly, Seth, I was going to have the first under play of the year on the pod. The line, I was hoping the line would be more like high 70s, low 80s,
Uh-huh.
but it came out lower, like 71.5 is kind of low. So I lean that, the under there. Um, let's see here. Wide receivers. Monterson Brown over 71.5 receiving yards against that Indianapolis secondary. I think that's great. Calvin Ridley over 58.5 receiving yards against the Houston Texans. We saw what like a CeeDee Lamb and Cooper Rush did against that secondary. So like I do think that Calvin Ridley's in play here, getting a lot of volume. Juwan Jennings over 53.5 receiving yards against the Green Bay Packers. He just seems like he's the guy there right now. You know, I know Kittle said he's going to play, but Juwan Jennings seems like Brock Purdy's favorite target.
Mm-hmm.
And one more receiver, I think the Tyreek Hill, 61.5. It just pops off the page to me as a number that just seems real low. I know it's been weird since Tua came back. Seems like they're running the ball a lot more than they usually do, but
Yeah.
it's a decent matchup here against New England. So I mean, I don't know. It seems too low. Tyreek 61.5. Doesn't that feel low?
It seems dumb because I know a few years ago his line was consistently in the high 80s or 90s
Yeah,
every
for
week.
sure.
Who knows? I think he should that line should even out, I think, a little bit higher. There's no way I don't think the rest of the year they stay there, especially if they want to have a playoff push. Like you can't I don't think the Dolphins are good enough just to run the ball every game with Achan. I think you're going to need to throw the ball a lot more, and not just to Jonnu Smith. You're going to have to throw it to Tyreek Hill. There is one play that I wanted to mention is Tommy DeVito over half a passing touchdown. Okay, they are playing a pretty bad defense. Okay, when it comes to passing and like it's a good matchup for receivers, for the Giants receivers. And who knows, maybe Tommy DeVito can sneak one in, but I know it's a really low multiplier. I believe it's like a 0.65x or something for over half a touchdown. But that's just one that kind of intrigues me. It seems like a little freebie to me. So that one kind of seems fun.
Seth, I honestly am curious what his yards comes out at. Him and
I
Neighbors, those are
haven't
two other
looked.
guys that I am looking at, the Neighbors props and the DeVito props. Because if we get a low number on Neighbors because of DeVito, and that matchup might just be good enough for anybody. So I'm curious what those numbers come out on DeVito and Neighbors. Or
Let's
even like a
see here.
Wandale too.
Yeah, let me
There's nothing
see.
right now.
Nothing right now.
No.
Okay. Well, let's get into our pod play, Jordan, and we can go over that.
Yeah, so we got Lad McConkey over 62.5 receiving yards, Puka Nacua over 66.5 receiving yards, and the Brian Robinson over 66.5 rushing yards. Probably going to get it a little about 68.5 now. So I feel pretty good about these three. I
Mm-hmm.
like where we're at this week.
Yeah, one thing, it's like you got like a prime time sweat on this play. It's going to be
Yeah.
a full weekend. You got Sunday morning, and then you got Sunday night, and then you got Monday night as well. So you guys will have a full 48 hours of sweat. Should be pretty fun though. I think these lines are all really good, all pretty low, all in the 60s, and I think these are all plays that I think should hit pretty easily. That'll be a full unit play. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and share with some other people who also like fantasy football and even some player prop plays. If you guys want to check us out on X. Trent is also our YouTube page here, and I believe our Instagram at TFF Dudes. Thanks for joining us, guys. See you next week, and hopefully we'll have a Thanksgiving special next week. Anyways, see you guys.
This has been another episode of the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow. For more information, go to www.thefantasyfootballdudes.com. And remember, we are sorry for absolutely nothing.